welcome to another episode of Shelby DIY. We're here at Fabulous Finishes in the back studio, and today we thought it would be a great episode because it's springtime and the weather's been so beautiful the last week, to show how you can recycle, repurpose, like anything you can find in the house, like old pans, old spatulas, pretty much anything you can find. Glassware, we have plastic stuff. So we just thought, well, how can we find a way to just show how we can use the paints that we have and how you can use them in different ways and create pretty cool planters. So just to give you a couple examples of things that we did do, we're not going to redo this one today because it took a while to paint it, but this is actually what this looked like. And I got it at Salvation Army, and I put a layer of textured base coat, the orange on it, which we are going to use on something else today. And then when it dried, I did a layer of the plaster that Caramel has. And then the key here, which we're going to put on everything, is the sealer that Caramel makes. They actually make a sealer for the cabinet paint that they have. And it's good for not only indoor, but it works really well outdoors as well. So that's key if you're going to do stuff and you're going to put it out on your patio. But just thought, if you take something that you're not going to use anymore, and you just put like couple little flowers in there, right? You could make yourself a cute little planter for for your yard. And actually we were playing with this, it's still playing music, so that's kind of funny. But the other thing we had was like this. I had found this type of lamp. Now these aren't for outdoor, but if you were going to put it like underneath a covered patio umbrella, and you hang it with an extension cord. This was just a smaller version, cute little thing. I got this at Salvo for $3.99. But I could plug it in, I can clamp it still. And again, the textured paint that we used on the truck, the orange, it's a really nice color under these greens and turquoises. Makes like that really nice outdoor finish. And this was just, hot glue and some beads on it, but how darn cute's that, right? So if you think outside the box a little bit, we were thinking, how many of these do you get? I got these flowers this week from a nice lady. And these typically we throw away because there's so many of them. But if you take them, and you just put a little bit of paint on it, this has some texture and some paint, but of course that sealer, put a little ribbon on it. You can use them for your outdoor planters. You can use them indoors as well. And then I thought it was kind of fun because every time I do go down to Salvo, I see so many of these, frying pans and pots and stuff like that. So, and nowadays people are really into their patio living and, decorating outside. We do like metal stars that we paint and stencil for people and they hang them on their brick. So, I mean, how cool would that be? So we're going to do one of these too, and there's your pot right there. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to start with this textured paint right here, the pumpkin, because I really like that color for summertime. And just to show, that was like the first layer that I did on this. So, and really, if you have some of these paints at home, just take what colors you have. I mean, some of the things I did, that's what I played with, just combining what I had left or what was out. But this pumpkin, it's pumpkin colored because it's orange. It's a nice thick paint. This is the one that's like peanut butter. Of course, clean your piece, but this was new, so I didn't even clean it. And just schlep it on real thick. I mean, you can kind of smash it on. You don't have to paint it dainty. But the key with this thick paint, this is when it works nice thick, because I'm just going to build it and have it look like it wasn't this little tin aluminum, material. So this would be my first layer on this whole light. Now I didn't do it on the inside because I was just concerned about how hot it gets, and really if it was hanging, out for like patio ambiance, I don't think you need to see it on the inside. But this would take a while to dry, so once I get that first layer on, I'll just set it off to the side and I would move on to my next project. Now I actually covered everything. You could even take these clamps off. I mean, they don't have to stay on, and you could just hang it like a single, light shade. But But this one I did the clamp too, because I figured, you know, could always clamp it to your fence or, you know, a pole, whatever you want to do. And, you know, I went right on the switch, and actually the switch still works and it's functional. So that's cool. On this pan here, when I did this pan, I actually did the red color of this thick paint, but we're just gonna keep this pumpkin out. And if you wanna do this stencil where it has like this raised design, you know, you could put your initial of your last name, you could put the year of your house that, you know, you moved into your house, you could do all kinds of fun stuff. You could just take a stencil, we've got a zillion of them here, or you can take one that you already have, or you could try to cut one out yourself, okay? And again, I just used that thick paint, but I used it in the black. And here is just a matter of taking a credit card and just floating it real heavy. So I'm not scraping it tight. I'm not going like this. I'm just really plopping it heavy, and then I'm lifting it right up. And again, that'll take quite a while to dry. So you just start your project, set it off for half a day, let it dry naturally instead of trying to blow dry it. And then, you know, to clean that stuff off your stencil so you're not wasting your paint, just put it off to the side and scrape it off that way. Okay. So that's how I got the black. This one's already dry because we did this ahead of time. So my step 2, if I was going to try to redo that pot, this thick paint again, because it likes to cover everything, and I can do it any way I want. I can, you know, try to paint it neat. I can smash it on. I could roll it if I had a roller. Okay. But this went over the whole pot. I didn't go on the inside because my goal is to hang it, and so I don't care about the other side. You know, I went right over the handle. If I want it thicker, again, I can just bounce it and leave it heavy. I could do 2 layers if I wanted, but to me, I like to get things done in one. So I would just go right over the whole thing. And this one we will dry, and we'll do it start to finish so that we can see how one of the projects ends up. The light we won't finish because it's kind of doing the same thing, just different colors. Okay, so we'll get this on here. And this paint dries pretty quick. It is water-based. There really is like not much of any smell to it. Low VOCs. You know, your kids can use it. You could have them doing this kind of project for you. Just don't let them go into your cupboards and take your good pans. That would be pretty funny. Come home and your pans are all gunked up with paint. Okay, so that's like right there. That'll be good enough for me. We'll put that off to the side to dry. And then the other thing would be like the glassware. You know, this one I took that same kind of texture and just dragged some texture on it and let it dry. If you want something like that to have a little bit of extra effect, you know, if you look closely at this one, I did it in stripes so you can see just a little other dimension. Not like you have to do that. But if I was just going to take glass and just paint it, I like to use, I mean, the textured paints work really well, but I like the chalk paints as well. Our American chalk and clay paints. They're nice and natural, and they just have a lot of really fun colors. This is vintage velvet. It's like a warm goldenrod yellow. And you know, you could just paint, you could do 2 coats if you wanted. Again, I like to just do 1. So if you leave it heavier, it just kind of bunches up. It'll dry. It doesn't take too long to dry. This paint does require a sealer to stay put. And again, the reclaim sealer being indoor-outdoor works really nice. And you would just paint that up. You could do a couple layers of color. You could put a stencil on it, but it's hard to stencil on anything that's round, just to warn you. I don't like to do stenciling on things that aren't flat. Okay, so we're gonna schlep this on here, and we're gonna dry this one as well at the break, and we'll see what we can come up with. So these are our first layers here. We're gonna put a dryer on them and go to break, and then when we come back, we'll see how we can kind of wrap these projects up.
My name is Cheryl Steinhurst. My husband and I are owners of Steiny's Tavern. We're located on the northwest corner of 25 Mile and Shelby Road. We offer a unique dining experience from our restaurant to our off-site catering. Everything we make is from scratch. We utilize Michigan-made products whenever possible. We're open 7 days a week. We offer daily lunch and dinner specials, and we carry the most craft beers on draft in all of Macomb County. So plan on coming out to Steiny's Tavern, where you come for the food and stay for the party.
Welcome back to Shelby DIY, and our pot is dry. Took a little bit, and our vase is dry from the yellow chalk clay paint. So what I'm going to do here, and I hung the little light, I don't know if you can see that up high, but the finish, typically if you're going to go for that outdoor kind of verdigris color, patinaed, I'm using some of the American Shoreline. Any kind of turquoise will do, and then if you take like a lighter color, this is their Liberty. It's like a lighter greenish. And I always start with the deeper first. And then actually I'm gonna get a little bit of water as well. I'll just take it out of my bucket here. Sometimes it helps to water that paint down at the end. And I'm just gonna use the same brush. So I'm gonna put this turquoisey color over the pan. Now, if you see as I'm painting it, if I just scrub my brush sideways, okay, and I'm not using a lot of paint, I only took just that little bit on my brush, and I'm just kind of scrubbing it, you can see that I'm not going all the way down into the texture. You know, I could leave it that way. I could just kind of do this and lightly put that paint on the top and like it the way it is, and then move on. This one, I painted the whole thing. I kind of got down into the grooves, covered a little more of it than this. But, you know, you really can do it any way you want. That's kind of the beauty of using the textured paint underneath, because the paint on top catches to all that texture that you created by smashing it on and putting it on bumpy. Okay, and there's my design right there. You can see that. So I'm just gonna, I don't really know what we're gonna get. I don't really care too much, because we've done this enough that even when you don't try hard and it looks icky when you're doing it, it always usually looks pretty good when you're done. So you don't want to really overthink your projects. Probably the key is just the color, and I wouldn't use, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 colors, because then it tends to just get kind of muddy. But this turquoise is pretty, and then if I use that little bit of like that lighter Liberty color over top, even if I do a little bit of water, that's how I kind of got it to go down into those cracks and crevices, by using the water. Then that just kind of creates another shade. It still looks turquoise, but it just has like that whitish color. And once this is dry, I'm going to lightly sand it just to get that pop of the design through and some of the orange from the base. And then we would put the sealer on it. And then after that, if you want to antique it up, kind of dirty it and make it look earthy, that's what this one has. It has like a toning glaze on the top. And you wouldn't even have to do that if you like this brighter pop. Now, if I didn't want to use that Liberty color and I just want to use the turquoise and I want to have it fill completely in, you see how that watered, that little bit of watered down lets me get everything. It kind of goes into all the cracks and crevices, okay? If I take it thicker, then it just leaves more of a color impression instead of like a wash. So I can go like that. Okay, so we'll leave this one like this and we'll see what we get. It'll dry. And then same thing with my vase here. If I just wanted to add, you know, a different color, I mean, you can just, you know, you can dry brush it. You can mix a couple colors. But the key here, I'm using the same brush. So it's not like you have to get another brush out and do a different color. You know, just use the same brush. You know, sometimes just have it where there's not much that goes on. Other times you can have it where a good pop of color goes on. You can put the paint right over each other, and the colors, unless you're using too many, can stay pretty distinct. And then once it dries, you put your sealer on it, which will make your color come to life a little bit more. If I just use full strength, okay, and I just like drag it, do whatever like that. I could even get the yellow back into it if I wanted to give just a last little bit of, see, I had that yellow left, so, you know, that kind of thing. So you keep going, you stop, you could dry, you could do 5 more layers, it really doesn't matter. But the key is, it doesn't look like this anymore. So, okay, so there's our glass right here. The only other thing I wanted to show you too was this one here was a plastic strainer. This is the bottom that I didn't paint. And really, I mean, just to see that these paints will actually adhere to metal, glass, plastic, just nothing that's going to be real bendable or pliable. So if I was going to try to paint the ribbon that's movable, I'm going to probably end up with cracking and it's not going to work real well. But, you know, again, these little guys, if I had it left over, you know, and I put it out in my yard, I mean, what a darling little planter for the summer, right? I mean, how cute. Could even hang it and have it hang somewhere, except then you'd want to really paint the bottom part. So we're going to take another quick break just so that we can dry these up, because they really do, if you're going to put these outdoors, they need to be sealed. And this way I can just at least show the sealer going on, and then we'll be good to go.
A&A Recycling Center is Michigan's premier parts recycling center that saves you money while protecting the environment. We pay top dollar for late model junk cars, SUVs, and trucks. All types, all models, both foreign and domestic. Search our online inventory to find used and refurbished parts. Need quick cash? Don't throw away your junk, because your scrap metal is worth money. Selling has never been easier with our easy drive-on, drive-off scale. Visit A&A Recycling Center today.
Hi, we're back at Shelby DIY, and our projects have dried the second layer. So now what we're going to do here, this guy, all I'm going to do is I'll wait for him, and we're going to put a coat of sealer on him. The pan, just so that we can pop some of that textured paint, which was the orange pumpkin, and the black stencil. I'm going to take like a 150 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to lightly hit my image right there. And if I want some of the orange to come through, I'll just sand around different areas of my pot. Okay, get that off. And probably can't see it yet, but you'll be able to see it once it's sealed, because everything's kind of powdery right now. I'm actually going to take a little more of that black off because I want to see more of my stencil. I'm going to cover this more, or uncover it. Now this one's a little different because I had the black stencil on first, and then I did the orange over it, where this one I had the red texture on first, and then I did the black stencil, and then covered it with the chalk paint. So you see more of the black. Okay, so I can sand until I get it the way I like it. Okay, I'll just pull a little bit of that pretty orange texture around the sides of the pot. And if you did this outside, then you wouldn't even have to worry about the dust, but that's about the only mess you're going to get from this kind of project. Again, it doesn't smell, which makes it real nice. Okay. Okay, so that's about good. Okay. Wipe that off. Now I'm not using tacky paint or tacky paper or anything. I mean, just taking a cloth. Getting the powder off is good enough here. Now, what I'm going to do is this sealer, Reclaim makes this sealer. It's really popular. It's a great sealer for indoor-outdoor use. It's a big one we use for cabinets. Quite durable, water-based, doesn't really have too much of a smell, but it's great for outdoor projects too, and it works on, I know at least all the paints that we carry here, works well over our chalk and clay paints, works great over the caramel paints. So this here, it's going over not only the textured paint that caramel has, but it's also got the turquoisey colors from American clay. And you can see that the sealer kind of brings the paint a little deeper, brings it back to life, we say. The chalk paints dry lighter. Okay, so I'm going to get this coat on here. And I'm just going to put one coat on just to seal it up. because I know that this is going to be ultimately hanging on the back of a house. That's where I plan on putting it. Now, if I was going to put it in the yard or something like that and it was going to be exposed to more weather elements, I would probably let this dry well and then put another coat on as well. But right now we're just going to have one coat, okay? So now that's how it is. It's a little brighter and more vibrant. We'll let this sit a second while I'm doing the other project, and then I can show you just how there's like toning glazes that can go over it. You would wait until it dries, but we'll put it on over this while it's kind of tacky, and you'll get the idea of what it's going to look like. Same thing on the glass here. You would want to put a coat of sealer on your paint so that it stays put on the glass. And then, you know, let the project dry before you start to put it next to anything or put plants in it or any display stuff you're going to do. I mean, you want to really make sure everything's good and dry before you start to use it. Okay, so that would get a coat of sealer on it as well so that it can go outdoors. And then, you know, like I did with this one here, you can tie a ribbon around it. You know, you could do, you know, any kind of thing you wanted like that. Plant it. You could have it hold straws or whatever you have outdoors. Now, this one here, this toner, it's like a toning glaze. Caramel makes it. And it is actually, actually I should back up. We had, where did I put that little truck? Well, he's right here. On break, we put a little bit of that pumpkin textured base coat on the front of this truck just to show you how we got this plaster, like this stone look. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to drag just a little bit of it on the truck so that you can see how that would be applied. And this is that stone texture. We've used it before. Actually, we used it on the countertop episode where we rolled it on. But this is just, you can either just drag it or you can, you know, bounce it and scrub it on. You could put a whole layer on them. When I did that other truck, I kind of just did this kind of thing. Let some of that orange come through, but then put it everywhere else. Okay, so it was like this. This stone can't adhere to this type of material without having a proper base underneath. So the textured paint's the one that I used on this, and then the stone goes over top, which creates this. Now you can see this color's a little bit brighter. The way this got to that nice deeper earthy tone is this toner. It's just a toning glaze. It's optional, but if you liked this a little brighter and more, you know, this lighter color, then you could just leave it, let it dry, and put that sealer on it, and you'd be good to go outside. Otherwise, you would seal it like we did to this pot, and then you would put that toner over it. Now, I'm pushing it because obviously we didn't let this dry, but you'll be able to get an idea. On the side, I'll do it. Okay, the toner is just like a toning glaze. You would brush it on your whole piece, okay, and then you take a dry rag, and if you just softly weather it back, then it leaves that nice, cool, agey color. And I love it with the turquoises because it changes it to like a greeny, just like a cool patinaed old gutter, instead of being a little bit brighter like the bright Bahama colors. Okay, so this is how I got that dirty color on the pan if I did something like the toner. And again, you would wait till that sealer's good and dry. You wouldn't be putting it over it like I'm doing right now, but this just gives you an idea of how you would do it. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, you'd have your outdoor old frying pans, okay? Hang them, put ribbons on them, have cool decorative things for your outdoor patio use. You can create planters out of plastic, glass, old metal. You can create lights. Just use the proper layering of the paints. The paints here we have are really, they're easy to use. They're do-it-yourself friendly. We're always here to help if you need design advice or how to order paints, like how to layer them or what needs to go first. And then if you are doing outside projects, make sure you do use the sealer. That's good for outdoor weathering. And I hope you have some pretty cool stuff in your yard this spring and summer, and join us next time for another episode of Shelby DIY.